Hey guys, welcome to our second video in our Social Studies series for the GED or HiSET test. Today we are talking all about political cartoons because you will see those on your exam. We will go over the history of political cartoons, why we have them or the purpose, how to analyze political cartoons, and then of course practicing them, because the more we practice, the better we will get at analyzing them. Welcome to Purely Persistent. I'm Michelle. So political cartoons have been around for a very long time. This political cartoon here is thought to be the first political cartoon. It's from 1754, and Benjamin Franklin was actually the one that created it. So at the time, there were 13 colonies in the United States, but they were all very separate and very divided. And so the founders of our country really wanted to unite the colonies together. So one way of doing this was Benjamin Franklin created this political cartoon. Now, at the time, there were a lot of people that did not know how to read, but if they looked at this political cartoon and they could somehow decipher these two words here, join or die, they could figure it out. They could see, all right, here's a little snake and it's very disjointed, right? And there aren't exactly 13 pieces, but if you look closely, each one of the pieces of the snake represents a colony. And so if you don't join, or if everybody doesn't join together, this country, why people immigrated here from Europe, if we don't join together, we could die. Our entire country could just fall apart, the British will take over, and we, as a new country, will probably die. So essentially, there are four purposes for having political cartoons. The first purpose is to insult enemies. So maybe taking a weak point that the enemies have and poking fun at it, or maybe just a general insult where if you're reading it and you're the enemy, you'll just be insulted. Oh, how could they? Second reason, to celebrate our allies, right? You have been successful, you as our ally, our friend, our camaraderie, you've been successful. Let's have a celebration of the success that you have had. This one here is kind of a biggie. Change points of views on important issues. So sometimes people aren't going to read something thoroughly. Maybe they'll just look at a cartoon and the cartoon would make them think, oh, I didn't think about that. Maybe my opinion is actually on the other side. And finally, it is a cartoon, so to make people laugh. Now, in my opinion, political cartoons are usually not like extremely full of, oh my gosh, this is so funny, I have got to really laugh. But, you know, maybe you chuckle a little bit. It is a cartoon, so sometimes they're supposed to do that, maybe. Maybe that's the definition of cartoon. So political cartoons are actually a lot like poetry, okay? Both use a lot of figurative language. So be sure to check out my poetry videos if you haven't yet, because that'll help you on your reading test. But also it'll help you really understand this figurative language that you will see in the cartoons. I'm filming this video here, it's the start of 2022, right? And so if you're watching it later, think about how the world was at the beginning of 2022. So we have to look at several different things. First is symbolism. So we have a few symbols here, right? And in this case, we have the numbers, right? You look at this, it says 2022. And so you know that this is probably the new year of 2022 based on the caption that is down below, right? Expect more of the same, right? So we think, oh, well, what was 2021 like? 2022 is probably going to be more of just the same. That's the way that this cartoonist is sort of predicting our new year to be. Exaggeration. So in this cartoon, there definitely exaggerating, right? They're taking our year and they're saying, this is what you can expect. There's probably going to be nothing good. It's all going to be just bad news, right? That's kind of what it's saying here. Just expect more of the same, right? It's exaggerating. Last year was bad. This year is going to be just as bad, right? That's what it's saying. Comparison. If you can use things that you already know and use that to compare and then understand the differences within the cartoon, that will help you to better understand, okay? This is comparing 2022 with 2021, and it's basically saying that there will be more coronavirus, right? COVID-19 is not gone, right? That's the first one. The 0 and the first 2, I guess second 2, are indicating there are going to be more natural disasters, right? There will be more hurricanes, more tornadoes, more wildfires, a lot more devastation as far as climate change goes. And then the last 2 is basically the political unrest. There will be more political unrest, right? That's what they're predicting. Irony is when something is sort of the opposite of what you think it might be, right? And so this has a little bit of irony when you look at that bottom sentence, right? It says, then when it turns out better, we can be thankful, right? If you didn't include that bottom line and all you saw was 2022, expect more of the same, right? That's pretty negative, but then it has that ironic twist that maybe you wouldn't expect to have at the very bottom in the blue. Now, speaking of that, you do want to make sure that you take a look at the labels. The pictures are going to have a whole bunch of clues to really help you figure out what it means, but so are the labels. So really take a close look at whatever labels they have, because hopefully that will explain a little bit more of the cartoon and help it sink in a little better. And finally, what is the point of the cartoon, right? So the point of this cartoon is 2021 was kind of rough, and going into 2022, we're experiencing a lot of the same things. Hopefully though, that, you know, if we just have low expectations and expect that things are gonna be a little rough, then when they're actually better, we'll be like, oh my gosh, thankfully this has happened. I guess our life isn't so bad, right? So these political cartoons that I picked out to go over are basically relating to what's happening right now in our world, or what's been happening, you know, within the last couple of years, and also just a couple that are funny, maybe, sort of. Okay, so let's start off by looking at the picture here. So we have some turkeys, and it looks like they are all together, jumbled up in some sort of cage, sort of looking at the top. And looks like they all have, you know, the wide eyes, kind of like turkeys have, and one is talking to another turkey. And it says, "No, I don't want to hear your new stuffing recipe." So noting some of the figurative language that we just talked about, there's symbolism, right? If you live in the United States, the turkey is a symbol of Thanksgiving, right? And so this cartoon is from November. It's a sort of Thanksgiving cartoon. Now the irony in here is the reader knows that turkeys are eaten for Thanksgiving, and that stuffing or dressing is oftentimes put inside a turkey and baked in the oven. And so that's kind of why it's ironic. The one turkey is like, no, I don't want to hear your new stuffing recipe, because it's almost Thanksgiving and I am almost about to die, and stuffing is going to be stuffed up my butt and I'm going to be baked, right? So that's why it's like, no, I don't want to hear your new stuffing recipe. And so again, the wording and the labels in this political cartoon are critical, right? If you didn't have that, you would just make up anything, right? Maybe the turkey is like, hey, how are you doing today, right? So the wording is definitely critical in this cartoon. And the point of this cartoon is simply just to kind of laugh. This one definitely is not trying to sway us anyway, has nothing to do with politics. This political cartoon came from 2020, and I chose this one because remote learning is something that a lot of people had to deal with, right? We were at our homes and teaching or learning over Zoom. And so let's just kind of look at the pictures. So first, we have the kid. Looks like he's playing video games, right? And he's like, remote learning ain't so bad, right? As he tells his probably sister, maybe his mom, right? So he thinks it's great. I can just be at home and play video games all day, right? And then looking behind, there's his computer, and his teacher says, well, Ben, you look cheerful as usual this morning, right? And so it looks like Ben drew a picture of himself and he taped it to the chair because he had to show his video, and his teacher sees him, he's there, he's attentive, he's smiling, right? And so this is definitely something that we can relate to because we've all had to do remote learning. A lot of people, though, didn't really care for it, but Ben is like, it's great because I just get to play video games and take my picture over there, right? Exaggeration? Absolutely. Come on, you guys. The teacher would have known that that was just his picture and that wasn't actually Ben there paying attention, right? Total exaggeration. Exaggeration that remote learning was just you could play video games all day. Yeah, if you were doing it right, hopefully you weren't playing video games all day, right? The wording and labels, definitely important. However, maybe not quite as important as other cartoons. And the point, probably just to make us laugh. There's so many political cartoons about COVID-19, and I chose these ones because we can all relate. So here's another one. Okay, so it looks like we have some people that are inside a house, right? Locked in, probably quarantined inside their house. And then there are all the animals outside, and they're taking pictures of the people, right? And so it says the coronavirus zoo, and do not feed the animals, that sign, and then do not tap on the glass. And look at the deer is taking a picture. The bear has a little bear cub and a stroller and a little balloon, and then there are just the people like, oh, looking out the window, right? So let's take a look at the figurative language and analyze it. The symbolism is definitely because it's COVID-19. This is sort of a symbol of COVID-19. Sometimes you have to be at home quarantine, right? Exaggeration, absolutely. Like animals are not going to be coming up to our window and taking pictures. Although during lockdown, a lot of animals were the only ones that were out and people were not as busy bustling around like they usually do. Comparison? Absolutely. So we are normally going to the zoo and we have our little stroller with our balloon and our cameras, and we're taking pictures of the animals that are behind the glass, right? And so this is comparing COVID-19, our experiences, to maybe how the animals sort of would be if it were a zoo, right? Irony? Absolutely. Really just the opposite. It's ironic that we're stuck inside behind the glass and the animals are running out. Wording and labels. These ones are definitely creative because these are signs that you normally see at a zoo, right? Do not tap on the glass. Do not feed the animals. We see these at zoos all the time, right? And I would say the point is to make you think, oh yeah, it is kind of like a zoo. Here I am just sort of locked up and the animals are outside, right? It's funny to laugh out loud. I didn't, but maybe you did. I don't know. But definitely just to make it just ironic, kind of funny. This political cartoon here was created in 2011. However, it's meant to depict a long time ago. So you can notice here we have a guy standing with his arms crossed, kind of looks a little crabby, and then another guy over at a desk with some sort of contraption on the top, right? And it says, Watson, my telephone invention is ready, so I'm giving you my number. Ready? It's 1. Okay, and so this is probably depicting Alexander Graham Bell, who is the inventor of the telephone, right? And so let's take a look at our figurative language and see what it aligns with. So let's take a look at our figurative language and see what it aligns with. Symbolism, absolutely. Even just looking at that number, right? The number 1 is a symbol that means first, right? But there's also a symbol that each one of us has our own individual unique telephone numbers, right? But because this is the first one, the number is 1. Another symbol we have here is definitely the desk and the older gentleman. It's kind of a symbol that this is probably from a long time ago or depicting a long time ago, just like I mentioned. Exaggeration, for sure. I mean, we don't know sort of what that conversation was going. Was the guy next to him probably, standing with his arms like this? Probably not. He's probably like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you just invented this. This is so cool. Although they probably didn't use the word cool. Words and labels, for sure. I mean, if you didn't have the words beneath it, that cartoon would mean nothing. You wouldn't necessarily know that he had a telephone. You wouldn't know what was going on. You would just think, oh, here's a picture that's depicting years ago. The point is, it was created, everyone received a number, and he was number 1, so he got number 1. Although, who knows if he actually did or not. Okay, so looks like we have 2 people here. This first guy is walking, and he is looking on his cell phone and not being mindful or paying attention to his surroundings. Then there's a lady in the car. Same thing, she's looking on her cell phone and not paying attention to the surroundings. You can see the way that her wheels are tilted a little bit, that is probably showing that she is actually driving. The car is in motion. And then if you look at the little thought bubbles, they are both reading the same article, right? Record pedestrian fatalities. And then they both think, I wonder why, right? And so let's take a look at our figurative language and see about analyzing it. First, we have symbolism, right? And this is kind of symbolizing, okay, there are a lot of people that are dying because they're not paying attention on the road, right? And the symbol is, it's both the pedestrian's fault for not paying attention, and it's also the people driving that are not paying attention. Everybody needs to pay attention in order to reduce the number of pedestrian fatalities. The exaggeration is that they will both be reading the same article and that they will both be on their phones and not paying attention, right? Hopefully, I pray to God, one of them would actually be paying attention to reduce the fatality. The comparison is definitely, it's not just the pedestrian's fault. It's not just the driver's fault. It's both of their faults, right? Both of them are doing the same thing. That's the comparison. The same thing. Irony, it's ironic that they're both reading the same article and wondering the same thing, right? And again, the wording and labels really help us to understand what's going on, right? And if you didn't have them, I don't think the cartoon would have quite as much meaning to it. The point of the cartoon, guys, this is a really important message that this author cartoonist is trying to make, and that is, when you're walking around and you're a pedestrian, get off your phone and pay attention. And when you are driving, get off your phone and pay attention. So everybody needs to be more mindful when they are walking or driving to reduce fatalities. All right, next one here. Looks like we've got a few really big football players, right? The NFL, Football Nation 1. And then we have way down below a little guy in red. He's from the Red Sox. We won the series. We did it. Hello? So this cartoon is trying to send a message, right? It's trying to send the message of, hello, baseball is just as important as football. However, our society is valuing football and thinking football is way more important. Then here we are, we're winning the World Series, we're doing all these great things. Show us some attention, right? We just did these amazing things. Why are you not noticing, right? Stop giving football all the credit. That's what this cartoon is trying to do. It's trying to persuade people and show a point that baseball needs attention too. Next cartoon. Looks like there's a stop sign and a guy with the Weather Channel that is, holding his microphone, kind of flying in the wind. And then there are just these other guys. Dude, how did you do that? Right? Okay, so this is, okay. So this is definitely poking fun at the Weather Channel, right? How sometimes the weather people are attending big hurricanes or big storms, and the wind is just extremely powerful and blowing them away. But then it's ironic that these other guys are like, dude, how are you doing that? Like, as if they're in the same storm. So guys, I hope that going over these political cartoons helped you to be able to understand them a little bit more, help you read them, take a look at the figurative language, and really comprehend what was going on so that in the future you can read political cartoons and maybe understand them a little bit. Sometimes they're still tricky though, and also really do well on your social studies exam. Guys, I believe in you. I am so excited that you are here and you're practicing to take your GED or HiSET test. I know that you will do fabulous. Believe in yourself. I believe in you. Just practice, practice, and make sure you check out my other social studies videos that I have linked around here. Bye guys, peace.